All right, guys, so welcome back. Today is the next session, and it's a second session in this course that we are looking into WebDriver. We only have the first steps that we have started with, so it's a lot of things to learn. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to try to focus on the major minimal amount of knowledge that you need to really progress the most. So today we're going to focus on reviewing the homework. We're also going to focus on few more things that you can do with WebDriver on the same site. And then we're going to start on a project. So essentially what I normally do is just to pick some random site and just go for it. There are a few sites that work pretty well. So I'll try to, I haven't looked at them lately, but the idea is to not prepare for it, but anything can be automated. So we just go for it. Okay. So idea is that if it's a web application, it can be automated. It might change from class to class, the way we do it. It might have some more tricks, less tricks, but we go for it. There's never time we failed. Okay. So that makes it also interesting. So you have real project, you might have some real issues as we go forward, and we'll fix them and we proceed and we move on like that. So that's kind of interesting. I try to select some easier at the beginning, of course, and also give you some of the homework. So it's just a random sites, but production that you really see how this all works, right? And it's not really that scary. But major focus for today will be a homework review and also working with our vanilla site, because that gives you a good intro step. So yeah, so essentially just some few things. So it's like all memes, but it's kind of a public opinion also in a way. Like meme is a public opinion, right? What people think about engineers. So it's a joke, but it's kind of partially a joke, right? As they say. The rest is true. So yeah, so that's you can see this opinion of engineers, right? So what engineers do, and you can see at that's real. Okay, so probably this isn't just a normal engineer, but you can think about, look at this is QA engineer now, right? So you can see person is working in reality, right? I think only programmer is not super happy sometimes, but the bottom line is that you're working, right, as QA engineer. But look at perception of developers. So it's more, and I think only users don't really like them. But in general, you can see that this guy is playing, right? Is playing, to-do list nothing. And essentially you do copy paste, which is true, right? That's kind of, in a way, the proper development. And if you're not architect or you're not very senior who starts a new project, so like look at new things, if you're intermediate engineer, you pretty much copy paste. Not literally copy paste, of course, but you look at what's done by someone, look at the pattern and just follow it. Okay. And that's what I really recommend you doing as you get into a new team and you look at how they approach this. And it might not be ideal, but as I mentioned, it depends on your role, whether you can dictate or not. So just always start the flow, observe it for a couple of months, and then you, as you progress and you show really like you have some authority, right, with your work, even if you do in junior, then you'll be able to influence and make a lot of changes. Okay, just don't start with that right away. So I can tell you, even if you are a really high position and you come and you change everything, like you might not be there for long. Okay, so you really need to start and go with the flow, and then only when you get some authority, then you can influence things. That's the way it works. And in junior is just a must. Okay, there's no even question about it. Also, it's a path that you're going, and it takes time, right? And then really tiresome for some. So it really it's easy to give up, to be honest with you. So I was also going myself to a lot of courses like many years ago, like essentially I was really tired, so I was doing day and night. I had like 2 classes, like morning class and I had evening class. like 24/7, basically, also Saturdays. That's called intensive training, and it works very well. That's the fastest way you can really do wonders. Like after a month or two, you really like look at yourself and you don't recognize. But again, it takes a commitment, and it's committed to yourself, really, not to someone. Okay, so you need to really understand like why you're doing, because if you lose the motivation and then you just drop it. Okay, it's very easy. So you need to really look for motivation for yourself, whatever it is, right? So for some people, motivation is money, which is very decent, right? Why not? That's very good. Today's market is like booming and it's huge, and it's a lot of things going on. So that definitely for automation engineers, it's a lot of more money. Even QA engineers very decently compensated right now, but automation is a lot more because it really saves a lot of money to company, right? So that's why company willing to pay this money. So you just need to really, agree with yourself on something there. And then as you progress, you will be able to really reach out to very high. So that's kind of the idea out there. So again, practice, practice, and practice. What I'm going to do, I'll look at some questions that you asked in the homework, and I will go through some of them. Some questions really are, a bit more advanced, so I will leave them with future lessons. Okay, so there are some questions that you ask me, whether directly on Slack or in email, then I will make sure to review them, but not necessarily all of them today. Okay, because we want to keep the pace, and we just made a first step, right? So we need to really take time on this. But first of all, we'll start with interview questions, right? I would say I'll let you know when it's good to start practicing. Okay. I'll let you know when to start practicing. And again, it's like you buying a car, right? Like when you buy a car, you want to negotiate the price. How do you know the price? It's hard sometimes, right? So one thing, like I've been doing, for example, I just called remote dealerships, right, and just started with them. And whatever price they gave me, then I came to the other dealership which closed. Say, okay, here's what, and it's real, right? So they have an offer, they give me an offer. And then I went to another dealership and they say, we have this offer, can you beat it, do better? They gave me another offer. And then I went to another dealership, which again, I get what I wanted. So that's, and how do you know the price? You have no idea unless you start, right? And normally people say, okay, give me a different offer, then I can negotiate with you. So I just started with remote dealerships, very far. But again, if it's really huge price difference, then I would go there to buy, right? Who knows? So I also recommend you start with really places that you might not like to get a job, but you get a good practice at the interview. And who knows? I mean, now everyone is remote. It's kind of really interesting that you might even end up accepting it. But again, don't plan for it in the beginning. So do not have much psychological pressure. Also, sometimes the main problem with the interview, you don't get feedback, right? Or you get confusing feedback or wrong feedback. Because by nature, people are very nice. They don't directly tell you the feedback. Very rare, like maybe 10% who just don't care. I mean, they probably give it to you, but majority of people do not really give you that feedback. And it's fine, right? Because you want people who don't care, who really give you feedback, right? It may not be pleasant for you, but it's something at least you can work on. And if people say, okay, everything's good, I'll call you, and they never do, that's a bit of weird, right? So so I do recommend asking for feedback if you feel especially did not go well, because sometimes people really can help you with some suggestions. Otherwise, I mean, don't expect. I mean, I've seen people who just went to some interviews and they never get feedback, and they thought something wrong, which is completely different than what was really a problem. Okay, because just the same reason. So I do recommend asking for feedback if you felt, especially you did not go well. On top of whatever you made mistake, people also can give you feedback. All right. Yeah, so I think we talked about interviews. So I just want to talk about let's do a couple of more challenges and then move on to the homework. So essentially, you need to start simple, right? And then go complicated. And then those are like different few like sample algorithms there, right, that you encounter when you do code challenges. So we already look at branching a lot, right? Branching, essentially you have if else, right? You might include some multiples or divisible stuff in it. Loops is another precious thing. Single loop very often. So you kind of I like to joke, like if you don't know how to solve it, just start with a loop, right? And it'll come up somehow. So loops very often used, like reverse string, it's just one single loop, right? Or find the max number, single loop, things like that. Or find if it's something contains something, right? There is also math specific tasks sometimes. We'll look, we have not looked at those yet, but we will take a look as we go through the course. Double loops also used often. That's probably the most often task that you will be doing, double loop. Okay. So that's often the case. And there's also like more complicated that you have to use certain data type to resolve, right? Like map or things like that. There's more advanced things. Normally, this is a combination of some of those above. But you should start with simple pieces like that, right? And then just combination would not look so hard as you practice more and more. So it's like you walking, right? When you're walking, you don't think, okay, you need to like try to fall forward, right? And then I put my right leg up, right, forward, right? So I don't fall down, and then I continue falling, right? So like you don't think about this, right? And essentially that's why how you can really walk, right? It's so complicated for many of you because you just really don't know how to start walking. So you just need to walk a lot, right? That's what kids do, and that's kids' mentality. Lets them, because they think everything is a game, right? They don't really take it seriously when they fail. That allows them really learn fast. In our case, we really take it seriously when we fail. So we try to avoid things. And that's what opposite we want to do, right? We want to really fail a lot, so you learn a lot. And the adults normally, they try to avoid what they feel negative, fail, right? Just to protect themselves. And that's what really holds you down when you're learning new things. So it's a good experience definitely in life, but you should not use it in learning. So learning should be opposite. So that's really would be a problem if you don't, if you look at mentality. So let's take a look at the Java step devs, and we can look into some of the coding challenges. So, okay, I think we go like from bottom to the top, right? So here's our entry step. I'm going to close everything right now, except Java feature. So I right click, close other tabs. And then I just get into that step. So you can see I only have two, right? Java feature, Java step devs. By the way it works, if you at least have any error anywhere, like for example, here I have some, I don't know, it's not actually error. I have something not working and I want to run this, right? So Java step devs is all good. So let me right click and run it. Do you guys think it will let me or not? It doesn't. So because it's by definition like that. So when it compiles the whole project. So if at least one class have issue, if at least one class has issue, it will not allow you to compile it. Okay. So why do you think that's the case? Why do you think it's really been created like that?
It's easier to catch a bug.
Yeah. So like because some people say like, why does it allow me? Like it's strange. Like, no, it's not really strange because I mean I understand the concern, but that's by definition like that. Because by definition, it's like like law of broken windows, right? Like neighborhoods with broken windows looted a lot and they they deteriorate a lot and they really have a high crime rate. Simple because of like something is broken, small, right? So you need to really keep things tidy, and they only allow zero tolerance to any issues. Okay, so you should fix everything, make sure nothing red. Okay, then you can really run it. So it's by definition, you make sure nothing is your project is broken. Okay. So that's what the way it wants. Okay, so since I run Java, I don't want a browser open close. How do I do it? I know that Cucumber always runs hooks, right? So what I can do, I can go to configuration. So hello world here, right? And I can see that in support, we have hooks, test context, test runner. So I don't need anything of this for actual, just simple Java run. So I just delete this. And I keep definitions because Java step devs in definitions package, okay? So I say, okay, and then if I run it, now it will just ignore the hooks because it will ignore the package. Okay, so that you can see now it just runs stuff pretty nicely. So that's the way it works. Okay, so I'm going to close this and just get back to Java step devs. And I need this solve coding challenges method. So last time we looked at reverse, right? Reversal essentially. So we had tried the printing and actually returning back reverse string. So you can see it's a simple single loop, but just backwards, right? Any questions about those tasks? It's pretty often, it's like warm up or not even like warm up, maybe more complicated one, but it's very often. So make sure you know the algorithm, okay? Any questions about this? Yeah, it's kind of looking simple, but you need to really do it yourself. Like do it a few times from scratch. Make sure you know how to do it, right? So you'll, because for loop is, especially with index, right, is used a lot. So, and you understand the logic. Also good to, you know, put a breakpoint inside a for loop and just run it like in debug mode. So see like my hello world, just run debug. And you can see it stopped, right? So you can really observe what's going on. See it stopped. So by default, it gives me variables, and you can see watches also. It's like all configurable, can be changed. So you can have watches here. You can see it stopping here, right? So what you all need to do is just click on this step over and observe. Okay, so you can see here, the string is WebDriver and the reverse string is for now empty. But you can see also the index is 8, which is essentially going to be the last character, right? So essentially it's a length -1, total is 9, right? So index 8 is a last character of means R. You can see here now empty reversed will be appending the last character. So I just want to click this. And you can see now it is really R, okay? And so these variables here is just the current state of things, all the variables that in the method available or a class, okay? And the watches here is just free form. So you can see click plus and just start typing like, I don't know, 5 + 8. So it'll tell you, it's just, you can run any expression live, okay? Or you can delete it. You can also use existing variables. Like for example, I can see, okay, what if I say reversed variable and say plus my text here, okay? And you can see here that R my text. It's really takes the value from existing variable at this point of time when stopped, and you did some operation with it, okay? So it's like, you can also change that and affect the result. Sometimes it's useful when you stopped in a browser and you want to find some element. Okay, so I will try to use watches once we need it as a find element. Like some debugging is very good in that regard. Any questions on this? Need to get used to it because you might have a different layout, so you can really change it, right? You need to play with it to understand better. So it's basically pure UI, pure layout of this, so you can hide it. Debug is one unit, okay? It shows up, right? You can position different, like on the right and the left, a lot of things that you can configure here. Okay, so like move somewhere place else, make sure it's pinned, right? Unpinned, whatever. It's a lot of modes. Okay, so yeah, just let's keep going. So say R, right? You can see now it's keeps adding more, and you can see index decreasing, right? Going back, right? And you can see reverse string is actually getting more and more characters to it. So the key to this, and again, you can just let go, it's all clear. So the key to this is to make sure you know how to write reverse loop. So essentially, you don't necessarily need to start from 0, right? You can start from anywhere you want. Not necessarily to increment, you can decrement also. And the conditions here can be whatever you want, okay? So it's really configurable that way. Okay, let's look at something else. Let's look at, for example, reverse string without extra variable. Okay, so let's take a look at this one. Just want to try it one time. For example, let's say I want this, right? I want this get reversed, no variable. Okay. So I want to create that method. Actually, it looks like did not understand well. I said Boolean. I don't need Boolean here, of course. So I need to return reverse string. And here the variable would be also str, generic variable. And it should return same string, right? But reversed. So if this is the way to do it, with extra variable help, there's a few ways to do it without extra variable. Actually, there's many ways to do it. But what comes to your mind, really? Anything you can think about? Let's say if somebody gives you that task. So here's the logic how to do it without, so with variable, right? So what are the options here? Any ideas?
To update
Changing.
the variable that we already have.
Yeah, that's good thinking. Yeah, of course.
To reassign, I mean.
So essentially, the for loop will be the same, right? Because nothing changes, looks like, right? That's the way you do it, right? And then you technically should return reversed. But we are not allowed to do reversed. We're not allowed to use extra variable. So how do we? Again, there's a way to do it also with string builder, but on purpose, I'm avoiding string builder. It's again overcomplication. Of course, if you know it, you can go for it, but it's not the purpose of this task. Okay, it would not give you too many points. A little more points, but not much.
If you use str, would it work?
Yeah, you can do let me show you one solution. For example, right? Just very quick and dirty, if you like it. But this will allow the user task, right? So essentially, as was said, right? Let's use same variable. Why not? Okay. So what I'm going to do is, so here's, right? Why can't you just concatenate the reversed piece of string, right? To the same string. And let me just return back that string. So just to demonstrate you what will happen. You can see it actually appends pretty well. Okay. So the reason it works because here you can see, hey, the length will change, right? It will change, but it's only runs once before loop starts. Okay. So as you start adding to the same variable, this will be original length, which is going to be 9, right? 9 characters for this case. So this will not affect if you mess up with this area, right? That different story. But this only runs initially before going into loop. So you set initial I, and then there's a condition to continue the loop, and then there's a condition, actually not condition, but expression to run every time iteration completes. So what we do here is just add to the same string.
And we can return substring.
Yeah, exactly. So here what we do is return a substring, right? So string, substring, right? You can see, so this is actually, you can see string has extra methods, right? You can look at them, an API, there's on the slides, you can just search for string API, Google it, and it'll give you a lot of methods available, okay? Or you can just memorize some of them that you need and then use them. So we just need substring, okay? So substring here, you can see, so you can really take substring from string, and you can see there's two options on this method. You just give it beginning index, or you can give it beginning index and also end index if it's not last. So if it goes all the way to the last character, you don't need to give end index. By default, it's the last character, okay? But you can give it as beginning index, okay? So what should we give it here? Substring of what?
Second one.
Length.
Second one.
Yeah. First one.
Oh, yeah, so we need string length, right? So string length. So that's our length.
Didn't change the length.
New length. So there's a new length, right? So new length is now 18. Sorry, it's 9, right? 9, yeah, 18. So 18, and then divide by 2, it will be 8, right? So that's what will return on the reverse string. So you can see this works well. So the only difference between this and what we looked at, right? So we just keep using same variable, but before we return, we take substring. And beginning index is going to be, in this case, the length, the new length, 18 divided by 2, it will be a 9, right? So that will be 9, it will be first after 8, and 8 was the last index of that one, okay? That's kind of the way it works. Make sense? So you can see a lot of different tricks on top of something we have looked at, but so you might get this task, right? But if you know how to reverse string, you only worry about using same variable, and you can see here just put in the same variable just at the end, right? And then just take substring from it. Question?
So it's you fulfill the string from both sides, yeah? You change them, and in middle you have constant char. Else our will change from both sides, yeah?
So let me see, just want to print out. So you can see here, before I return, I just want to print out what I get, right? So you see, like, what happens here, we take original length, okay, -1. That same solution, right? We start with that, and then going backwards. But then the only thing we do different is that we use same string and add to the end of it. So that we add R, we add E, V. So we're basically going backwards here, okay? And adding to the same string, so it becomes this long. And then you can see that new length is 18. That's this execution. And then the substring that we take really is take the length of new string, divide by 2, which will be 9, okay? So now this will be a new substring, so that means that start with index 9. Everything is index 9 is this guy, okay? That's why it takes from index 9 and then goes until the end to return that substring here. So you get this result. So compare this task with this guy, okay? So the only difference is that we have here reversed, here we have original string. So we just return reversed, and here we just do operation on original string, which now has grown. So we take the second portion of that one.
So which one would be preferable for the interview, or it depends on the task?
Well, if you know how to solve it both ways, and you can ask it, should I use variable or not? They say whatever you want. So you say, okay, let me use variable. So I mean, I personally prefer to go with simple because you'll be, performance of person under stress is way lower. Okay. So that's why right now, if you think it's easy, right, you might have issues when you're nervous. So I always recommend to go with simple first, and then you can always simplify it. I mean, optimize it, sorry. Unless you ask to do certainly. So if you're not asked how to do it, then I would go with extra variable, to be honest. Okay. All right. So I also wanted to follow up on some of the tasks you have done. Yeah, this guy is interesting. So sometimes you might, I'm going to just pull this up. Sometimes you might be given a task, and then as you solve it, you might have some follow-up questions. Okay. So in this example, we have this array, and we have this number. Okay. And you just want to see if that array contains that number. Okay. So that's the way you have here. Yeah. So essentially, we have taken this as example of array of integers. And then we say, okay, we accept integer array, and we have some element to look for, right? Say some number, because technically it's not element, right? I initially put this that way because I wanted to show you that naming does not really matter, right? Name here refers to this variable. Name here is just something you would use inside of this block, right? So just as a reference, but it does not need to be the same as this guy, okay? So we have this array, and we have this number to look for. And we basically going through every single element of array, and then we find this number, we return true, right? Otherwise we return false. So that's what we have done. So now the question is, can we, let's say like follow-up question might be, okay, can you make this work against any type of data? Say, what if it's not really integer, but if it's string, array of strings? Let's modify this. How do we go for it? Okay. So if it is an array of strings, so essentially I'm gonna just copy this. Yeah, so let me actually first initialize it. So we have a string array. And we just have, whatever. Right. So you have certain list of strings, doesn't matter. So it's array. And then you have string to look for. And you want to find it or not. So what if we just take this and pass in it here and in here? So it's going to work or not?
We need to change the equal to
Yeah. So this we need to change, right? So let's change it. So this we change to what?
You mean pass it to pool?
Yeah, see, like I changed string. And then what do you change here?
Also
Strings str
Yeah.
instead of num.
Yeah.
and equal sign to change to dot equal.
Yeah. Dot equals. And then it's not number, right? So it's like to find.
You can use intern.
So I have this now, right? Let me see if it works first of all. It's supposed to be true here, right?
But the first array, it's just simple integer. It's not the object, right? So will it work in this case?
Yeah, so look, so this, here's my point, right? My point is that we changed it to string, right? But then now, if I want, and again, put that original array, it's not working. So is there some way I can make this work against both scenarios? So I don't really care if it's a string array, if it's an integer array, whatever it is. How can I make it work?
That's overloading just.
Without overloading. I don't need to overload here. So the trick here is that's part of, there's a, as you already know, one thing I can try to do, I can change it. So see, like I have this, right? But I can also do it with this, okay? Integer, 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 okay? So can I think it's supposed to also.
Or Baraks can use it.
Good. So technically, I can use integer built in. It's a wrapper class integer that I can use, right? And I can just instead of lowercase primitive int, I will use capital integer. Okay, capital case integer. This is special wrapper class. We already looked at this, right? We know that it can, for example, parse, right? A string into integer. And you can see it works in that case. Okay, so let's say I put some number that does not exist. It should give me false now. It false. So just want to let you know, the equals method works on integer too. Okay, so it works on string and it works on integer as a wrapper class. Okay. Now the question is, now is this going to work? No, it doesn't, right? Because it's not really integer. So is there something I can do to make it work? So here's the trick that I want to show you. That's pretty obvious, but you need to know a little bit of Java. So if you look at int as primitive, right, and you look at string in those examples, and obviously they're not compatible, right? So this is primitive int that's not even taking space in heap. It's basically, so let's say if you don't go into that mechanics and keep it simple, primitive is just not an object, okay? It's just very simple to consume the least amount of memory very fast, where the object is different, right? So it takes more memory, but it gives you some privilege of, extra methods, right? And built-in methods and some other things that you can do, like as an example. So we can, in that light, use integer, right? Wrapper class. The special class is created to basically hold integer and allow you to really do some optimizations. So now it becomes an object, okay? Yes, it takes more memory, but again, in automation, we don't really much care, right? Although if you use it in automation, I still go with primitive, right? Unless it's a special case like this one. The benefit of this approach in our case would be if we use object, okay? So object in Java, it's a root class, essentially it's a top level class for everything, any object, representing any object in Java, okay? It does represent integer, it does represent string also, okay? And those methods like equals, things like that, they really come from object. So it means that everything technically has equals method, meaning that it can compare itself with something else, right? Compare the value with other value. So this actually, in a way, it's a parent class. And what it allows us to do is the following. So what if we say here, so here we don't touch it's integer, right? Here we don't touch it's string, but we say here parent class, say object. We say here object. And what we should say here?
Object.
Object also, okay. So now look, so technically now is both of them objects, right? So essentially this is early goes in that way. And you can see that So you can see, okay, let's take a look, second case, first case. Yeah. This is not found, this is found, right? So let's assume both of them are same, let's say 8 here, right? So both of them should return true. Let's quickly test it. Just have it, different order here when you call. So you can see both of them work. Let's now put something that's not correct for both and expect false. You see false. So both of them are working just nicely. Okay. So that's really is the way, this is the trick of Java, right? So this is, allows you to convert to the parent class. However, even that an object here, it knows it is integer. That's the way polymorphism works. So we'll look into polymorphism more when we actually have our own class, right? But essentially, it's some sample of polymorphism, which is basically an object can be taken shape of parent object. Okay, so it will be having limited functionality, meaning that only can be calling method here that object allows you. See, like here you have object, right? So technically, I cannot call here like array. Let's say to find, right? Find. I only have equals, get class, hash code to string. So those are only really high level methods. If I had this as integer, then I would have way more available. See, for integer. If I had it as string, I would have had way more available string specific. Okay. But I make this object. I only have limited functionality. However, I can accept now any type of object. And because I only want to compare and find if it equals or not, it belongs to the object, right? Then it works. But whenever you run this equals, right? If it's a string, it will use string equals. If it's integer, it will use integer equals. So that's how polymorphism works. It basically will go to real instance method to check the equality. So we'll, I think it may be confusing for you right now. So we'll look more into it once we create our own class. So I'll get back to this topic. Just for now, bookmark it. However, the main takeaway from here is that you can always put parent class type in the method signature, right? So it accepts all the subclasses like this ones. And then you can reuse the same method across way different types of values. Any questions about this?
Slava, can we see very quickly reverse words in the sentence exercise?
Reverse words in sentence. Well, it's kind of same as reverse. I think a bit of short on time. I would maybe let's do this way. Next time I'll review it. Okay. Next class.
Okay, thank you.
It's good to get back to this different exercises. But essentially, you have a reverse words just split by space, and then you get array of strings, and then you basically reverse them. I'll review it. I'll make a note next class. So here, I just want to really quickly take a look at insights. So you can see here now, first entry is actual string. So you can see array of strings in string, right? And essentially, see, it still knows it's strings. Okay. So no matter that it's past an object, see, it says here string, even that here is a object. So it kind of goes over it, right? And it compares. So really it goes inside, right? So it checks equality as a string and then it gets through. For second scenario here, see, it still knows it's integers. Okay. And then it just goes through this. But because we put a higher level type here, it accepts now both string and integer. Okay. Just example here. And as an example, why would you go with the wrapper type? Yep.
Slava, would you mind please zooming into the code a little bit, please?
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
No problem. Yeah, so that's pretty much it on this one. So I want to review one more task before we go forward. That's requires double loop, so that's a bit more tricky. But nonetheless, it's pretty often also asked as well, which is obviously sorting, right? So let's take a look. It's very simple sort algorithm as we go from it, just without overcomplication. We just need really something simple, okay? So in our case, I'm going to, should I use this one? Maybe, yeah, this is good array to sort. Just comment everything out. Probably gonna put this before. And just use sort on it. So I want really to sort and create my own sorting, right, on that array. So bottom line is that this method should return back sorted array. So it's actually not good step, right? So let's create from scratch. So if it returns sorted array, what kind of type should it return? Okay, this one, let's convert back. Actually, let me do a clean cut here because I don't want to use wrapper class here, to be honest. It's a necessary complication, but yeah. Sorted, all right, okay. And we want to sort it. So what do we return as type back?
Integer. All right.
Yeah, same array of integers, right? And sort, right? And then we accept parameter as array, right? And then we just go to implementation. So you have 6 elements here, really. So essentially, the sorting is just a combination of 2 actions. Okay. First, I mean, I'm going to look into like divide and conquer logic or like really complex algorithms that work faster. I'm going to go with the simplest available. Okay. There's a few ways like insert sort, bubble sort, they're different, but they're all simple. They require double loop. Okay, you'll need double loop to perform a job. And we'll review logic a little bit. Okay. So let's see. So let's assume we want to do only one round. Let's assume we only need one loop. Let's see if that's going to help or not. Okay. So I might change a bit just to get a good demonstration of this algorithm, but let's go with whatever we put randomly. Okay. So you can see it has 2 characters. Sorry, 2 same numbers. Okay, duplicates, that's fine, no problem, right? So we expect it to be sorted. Let's assume you only do one loop initially. How do you write that loop initially? First step. Well, let's say I want to just go every single element from left to right and just compare and then swap. Okay, remember we had done swap a long time ago. So what do I do? For just one iteration. Let's do one iteration. Same as we have like looked at contain, right? Here we just did, I mean, the different for loop, but you understand logic, right? Can you help me?
Okay,
Int I is
start
equal to
with
0.
Yeah, I
array.
is 0. And we go until what?
Less than
I
1.
Yeah.
Right.
Length?
-1.
I plus.
Yeah, plus. So that's a simple one, right? And let's say I want to here just to test it, right? So real quick, I want to print every single element. Okay.
The length -1 should be, I guess.
No, we don't need here, no?
Do we really need -1? Let's start with that and we can see, okay? Well, since this returns we need to return something. Let's return same array. Okay, it's supposed to be sorted at the end. But the idea, I just want to print everything. Okay, so just want to show you that how does it work. So it's always good if you solve a task. And of course, if you in the interview, just go a few more runs. Okay, so make sure it works well. Okay, so you can see here it just printed same array 431,584, which is exactly here as it originally was. Okay, so this works well. So if I just do length -1, it will then skip the last
Yeah, but you don't need to compare with anything, the last one.
Yeah, I know. So you kind of a bit ahead. Yeah, I know what you're thinking.
Okay.
You're really thinking about comparison, right? You're right, actually. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I just want to show you. This is if I just want to print everything, we'll optimize it later. So remember, I know you know the algorithm probably very well. So kudos for that. Great. I just want to take one step at a time for everyone. But yeah, great. Help me out as I go forward. So yeah, so here I just want to show this, right? So if I do -1, then I would not get the last element. I can get last element if I do this, right? So let's say -1. So if it's just less than, I'll miss it, like this one, okay? But if I say, okay, I'm gonna go until equals, less than or equals, then I get it, of course. So it doesn't make sense to do it, right? So you can remove this, and then you can remove this, okay? So it's just cleaner that way, okay? That's why people normally write it this way. But yeah, you can do more if you now compare with the swap, right? Because you don't need to compare last one exactly. But let's start with this. So here we just know that we're printing it, right? So we go through every single element, okay? Now what we want to do, we want to really swap them, okay? And then if they're not sorted. So how do we check? What's the logic for it? What's the logic here to check for sorted? I mean, if that's correct or not, if we need to swap or not. What's the logic here? For now, let's forget about double loop. Okay, so just do one run at a time. We only do one loop, but we want to see if element is not in the right place, not sorted. We just swap with the next one.
You compare the value.
Yeah. So what I can do here, comparing to if, right? So comparing, I take what exactly here? Compare, let's say I take whatever first element is, right?
With the next one.
So if this one, let's say +1, is more than the one with I, right? I'll just swap them. Yeah. So let's just do a swap. So what's the logic for swap? Can you help me? How do I swap two elements?
Need to create a temporary variable before if.
You just multiply them, then divide.
So I just do opposite. So I take the, let's say in this case, it's first it's 0, right? I take the array 0 if it's more than bigger than the next one, +1, right? Which is 1. In this case, if 4 is bigger than 3, I swap them because that's not correct, right? So this is not supposed to be on the left of the one that has less value, okay? So that's what I do here. So I just, let's use temporary variable. I know we can do a more fancy way, but we don't care about it. Just take this, right? And then I can override it with another value. You see, like the sorting is nothing complicated here, to be honest. It's more like just combination of more tasks. That's why people get confused. So here one, it will break because obviously I try to reach out I+1, right? If I becomes the last, it will break, right? So that's why I should do here -1. So you can see this actually worked. See, like 3 in 1. So see, like what really happened here. It just swapped, but it did only one iteration, so that's why it's still messed up. Okay, so we moved some. So essentially, look at this 4, right? So it took at 4, And then it's just moved it up to here, right? Until it met 5, and it did not swap them because it's looking good for it. But obviously it did not do any good because it's, yeah, I think the last one actually was supposed to be 8, so it's missed. But yeah, you just swapped every single row, right? And that's pretty much it. So that's not something we wanted, to be honest. You know what, let me just do this way. So I'm going to, instead of printing one at a time, I want to just get that sort array. Okay, and just print it here. You can just see really what happens there. Yeah, that's what happened at the end. That was the original array. So you just did swap with all the pairs, but it did not help, right? Just did one at a time. That's it. So one iteration is not enough. So you really need to have a multiple of them with simple logic like that. And in that case, when you have to really do, it becomes a squared number of times you have to do it. Not just once, but you take that and you take a squared number, worst case scenario. It's really the worst case. So in this case, we just did 6 iterations, but worst case scenario, we should do around 36. There's a easy way to put it, of course, like divide by 2 probably, but just so you get the point. So in that, let's put some logic. So okay, this is not working, right? So the way to solve it is actually to use double loop. And let's modify this a bit so it will actually use double loop here, okay? So what I'm gonna do is just gonna start first loop, which will be original anchor element like this one, 4, right? That's the I0 becomes 4 as a first element. And then I need to compare this 4 with every single other elements here, okay? So I compare 4 with 3 and swap if needed. Compare 4 and 1, swap if needed. Compare first and 5, swap if needed. Compare first and 8, swap if needed. Compare first and 5. And that's basically, I just do all of them, okay? And just do swap if that's not the one I know I want. And I keep working like that, okay? Essentially, I get sorted array from the left to right, okay? So I just get second iteration, I start with the second element, work my way to right. Third iteration, I work the third element, work my way to right, right? Take this one, this one, this one. So let's put the logic here, and I'll just walk step by step. Actually, you know, let's visualize it a bit first. So that's original array that we have is this, right? So we have 4, we have 3, 1, 5, 8, and 4. So the logic you want to put in place is you take the first element, right? And you need to compare it with this one. So it happens to be, so if really the second element happens to be less than first element, so if first is larger than the second, we need to swap them, right? So that will become the new iteration. We'll have 3, so 4 will move here. Okay, then we have 1, 5, 8, and 4. And our pointer still going to be here. Okay, we actually, let's put also green. We swapped those 4 numbers only. the first run, okay? But our pointer is still the first one. So we just found that it's not sorted, so we need to really continue that way, right? So now we continue to compare. So we compare now to the next one, which is 1, right? And we say, okay, is 3 bigger than 1? Now 3 is actually was taken, right? But now we compare with the following element. And obviously it is bigger, right? So we swap them again. So we put the 1 here, right? And put 3 here. And then we get that. So that will be happening after second iteration. Our pointer is still here. And now we're going to compare with the next one. Okay. So we work our way from left to right until we get, after first run, on all the elements. After first iteration, after all first run through whole array, we'll end up always with the least size, the least number as a first. So essentially we're sorting from left to right. Okay, so obviously compare 1 to 5, nothing changes. Then we compare 1 to 8, nothing changes. 1 to 4, nothing changes, because 1 is the least number in the array. Okay, so that's what happens after first cycle complete. What should we do next? What's the next step here?
J equal 1.
Move the pointer.
Yeah, so essentially we move the pointer, right? That's what we do. So we take that guy, right? And then essentially now we move the pointer. So we take essentially that array, right? 1, 4, 3, 5. Just we don't touch it, right? 5, 8, 4. But now we move the pointer here. Okay. So should we try to compare 4 and 1 or no?
No.
No, because you know after first run through all the elements, we know the 1 is the least element, so we don't even touch it. So we always work our way to the right.
So 4, 3.
Yeah, we compare 4 and 3. So we work that way from there, right? So essentially, yes, obviously 4 is bigger than 3, right? So we need to swap them. So we take that as the next step, right? So this will be 3 and 4, right? And then be 5, 8, and 4. So that will happen, right? Keep in mind that pointer will always be this until we go through all the elements on the right, right? So then we compare 3 and 5, looking good, right? 3 is less than 5. So no more than 5, essentially. 3 and 8, 3 and 4. So this will be after second iteration, okay? And then we continue the same way, right? So essentially, sorry, I have less space here, but I have like 1, 3, 4, 5, 8, and 4. So now pointer moves right to 4. So we compare 4 and 5, looking good, right? 4 and 8, looking good. And 4 and 4. So 4 is not bigger than 4, so we don't swap them. Okay. So this is simple. So next iteration we go again 1, 3, 4, 5. Sorry. So here we have 5. And now the pointer will be on the 5. And then we look 5 and 8, looking good. 5 and 4, not looking good. So this should supposed to be swapped. So 1, 3, 4, another 4, right? And 5 will be here. Here we have 8. That will be second iteration. Again, pointer still here. And then we move pointer, right? Because essentially that's the last step. 1, 3, 4, 4, have 8, and you have 5. And at this point, we just now have pointer here, right? We compare in 5. So which is not, obviously 8 is bigger than 5, right? So we do swap, and we end up with sorted array. So you can see we basically moved all the elements in here, right? So bottom line is that we take the first element, compare with all of them, right? And then we keep comparing this, and you can see that the pointer is always the first element, and it will change, right? But it will change to less and less least and least element until we go through all the array. So we get at the end of first iteration, we always get the first correctly. So essentially we work our way left to right. Okay, so we basically see I actually build a square here, right? So that's why we have so many different chances. We compare it to every single item here on the right. So yeah, then of course we get to the last one, but we don't need the last one as was said, right? So we don't need, we just skip it because it doesn't make sense. There's nothing to compare on right here because we already reached the last. So we don't need the last element here. So that's the logic we want to build here basically, right? So I'm going to skip this. So this I will be responsible for the first element. Okay, so it will be the top major loop. So initially we start with the first one, right? Then we take the second one, then we take the third one, then we take the fourth one. But then we need the second loop to really take that element and go all the way to the right. Okay, that's why we need second loop, because the first top one is just taking the pointer and move it from left to right, one at a time. But for each move, we have to complete the verification that all elements on the right, not really less than it. If they're less than it, then we swap. Okay. So that's the logic here. So we need second loop, and second loop we use another index. And what kind of J is supposed to be really here?
1.
Why 1?
I plus 1.
I plus 1, right? Because
Yeah.
originally it's 1 because it's 0, right? But then as we move right, then it will be more and more. It's important. And we're going until array length, right? Also. But then we, in this case, we go all the way to the right. So the only first one, we don't need to go all the way, but that's why I have -1 because we don't need the last one, right? But the second loop, we need all the way to the right. And then we just also increment the pointer. Okay. And that's the whole logic here. So essentially we take the first element, I, right? And check if it's bigger than J element. And if it's bigger, right, we need to swap them. Just change this to J. And that's it, right? So that's the whole logic. So essentially that's what this is going to be. Let me actually show you. First of all, let's run it and make sure we get the right result. You can see it's sorted exactly as our logic was in the whiteboard. Let's just go step by step here. So you can see originally I0, and here's our array, right? Get in, so you see J is 1, right? Because it's J is I plus 1. So you can see, so you have two indexes, essentially first one, right? And then the second one is next to it. And we say, okay, and that's what watch is actually good for, right? Look, so I can really say, show me the I, right? So the element with I and element with index J. Sorry, it's I think I cannot actually increase size of this one. But the array I is 4 and array J is 3, okay? So basically 4 is bigger than 3, right? So we need to swap them. And you can see now this changed, right? See now this swapped. So essentially 3 and 4 changed the positions. You can see it here. However, the pointer I is still 0 in the first one, okay? So we keep going. And now you compare with the next one, right? And then we can just, again, compare it with 1, right? So we obviously swap it as well. Second iteration, we swap this 1, 4, 3. So we just swapped 1 and 3 because 1 is less than 3. And they keep going, right? Essentially now 3, 4, right? But then nothing changes because essentially 1 is the least element. And then that's what we finish this internal loop. They get back to the top loop, and top loop essentially changes the pointer, okay? So pointer now will be I1, which is going to be now 4, right? And essentially second loop inside will just work, take the 4, right? And then the J will be I plus 1, so whatever is on the right from the 4 in this case, and compare every single time, right? So essentially it will swap 4 and 3, right? So 3 will be here, and then it will keep 3 as is because there's nothing else to swap. So 3 is the next least element. And then after this iteration, you can see now we have 2 elements in good shape. So essentially, as we move the pointer, we ensure that whatever is on the left is sorted. So we work our way to the right by picking the least element available. Okay. There is another approach in the sorting algorithm to actually work the way from the backwards. So from the last one, go backwards. In my mind, it's a bit more complicated logic. It's kind of more weird because you have to introduce extra kind of variables. Well, kind of, it's harder to grasp, to be honest, in my mind, in personal opinion. So this is the simplest one. Just go from left to right. Don't need to go to right to left. Okay. Majority of solutions, for some reason, from right to left, which is more complex. So yeah, that's kind of the way you do. And then you have I2, right? So now we take 4 and then compare 4 with the rest of it. Essentially, you will end up keeping it because there's nothing less than 4. Okay. And if it equals, then it will just keep it. So then we get to 5, right? So now this is essentially the next iteration. So I3, 0, 1, 3. Actually 0, 1, 2, 3. And then obviously 5 and 8 will not change, but 5 and 4 will change because 5 is bigger than 4. So you can see here it will compare, right? Is 5 bigger than 8? No. Goes next. Now is 5 bigger than 4? Of course, yes, right? It will swap them. So you can see the operation here. So now whatever is on the left is sorted, and we only have 2 elements left, which obviously now it will go and compare 8 and 5 and swap them. So we end up sorted, having sorted array. And then we get to the last element, which is skip because it doesn't make sense. So it doesn't make sense to go to 8, right? Because there's nothing on the right side from it. And we return sorted array. So that's pretty much the logic of sorting. Okay. And I do recommend you really go through it like I did at home and just make sure you grasp it. It's complex, especially for beginners. If you understand it kind of step by step, it will be much easier for you to write down that algorithm when needed. Okay. So the tricky here is you go with double loop, and the first top one is a pointer, right? And then second one is actually comparison for that original pointer. And then that's why the J will be always the next to it, I plus 1. Okay. And that's why the first iteration here, you don't go all the way to last index, you do -1. But second one, obviously, you want to go to all the way to the right. And this one is a simple swap logic. That's if it's bigger, right, then it swaps. That's it. So there's many tasks around this algorithm. Like sorting is one, obviously still encounter it. Sometimes people ask reverse string, sometimes people ask to sort. Both equally popular. There is also often other variations of it. Like, for example, it says, okay, find there's no duplicates in array, or if there are any duplicates. Same logic for duplicates. Find if there are any duplicates in array. Same logic. Or find if any 2 elements of array is this number. Let's say you have like, for example, you have a method, you give it array and you give it some number. Okay. So you need to check, for example, let's say you give this array and you give 12. Okay. It should return true if at least 2 elements sum in 12. So in this case, like 4 and 8 is will be 12, so it should return true. But if you give it, for example, I don't know, 2, then it should be false, right? Because there's nothing should be true, right? If you give it 8, it should give it true because 4 and 4 is 8. This kind of logic. So that's exactly the same algorithm. Okay. So that's the same algorithm here. So so your homework would be just go step by step this algorithm. Okay. Make sure you grasp it. And I'll give you these 2 tasks and you try to use the same algorithm to solve that. Okay. Just think about it really and try to solve it. So if you didn't review it with Vlad yet, or even if you review it, you still need to solve it yourself. So it will be helping you. At the same time, it's simple enough to take a step from here. Questions?
Slava, is it something that we use day by day in automation, or is it just for coding challenge?
No, this is really, you don't use at all day to day because it's really coding challenge. It's just the reason for those tasks, reverse, like branching you use quite a lot, right? Loops you use sometimes, pretty often. Not pretty often, but sometimes, okay? Seldom, I would say, this is right. Very rarely I use something like double loop, to be honest. It's pure logic. It's like you just want to see how do you think? What's the logic, right? So they think if you can do it, then it will be obvious that you solve more complex and you can be educated to do stuff, right? That's pretty much the logic behind this. Okay. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. So yeah, that's the main problem. That's why I said, right? It's a main problem, literally, because if you really need to sort something, right? You don't write logic yourself because it's already written, right? Same as, like, imagine this: you want to automate the browser. You don't write WebDriver library yourself, right? You just use WebDriver library. So technically, there is existing elements that there is already existing things that pretty much do stuff for you, right? Okay. So like if I want to sort something, let's say I take a list. Normally I use this guy, right? Let's say there's integer, right? Array. So if I just have some array, I don't know. Right, so I should put 6. So let's say this is something I want to sort, right? So if I want to do this really if I need to sort for some reason, whatever, I don't even think why. But let's say if I need to have sorted a list, I would use just built-in methods that's available. So essentially if I just use int array, there's a sort method, right? However, you need to put a logic. How do you sort? Okay. So it may be a bit kind of tricky also because I would use lambda. So I can just say, okay, let's say you want to do ascending, right? So let's say 1, 1, so 2. Then you want to do a print default. That way. So if I do this kind of logic, to the console. Just put it this way. Yeah, so like this is descending. If I want ascending sort, then I just put it opposite. So that's the sorting. So this is logic that we put. Yeah, you can actually use a function as a call. So basically, there's more tricky things you can see. It's either lambda, right, or other approach. You just say how do you compare, right? You cannot just put this, right? So you need to say how do you sort? What's the logic for sorting, essentially? So this is a lambda way, and you put a semicolon the same order if you want this approach. So that's completely different, as you can see, from what you would be expected to do in the interview. Completely different. You don't do it often, so you kind of, you know, like for example, I just need to remember this because I don't remember when I last used this, to be honest with you. So probably like one thing that like more often I see, let's say if I have string array, right? Let's say I have string array and I have something like, I don't know, like B, A, B, C, right? So let's say, I don't know, a couple of things like that. So if I want to put a logic here to really sort by string length, right? Then I might use a method reference. Like I can put comparator and say, okay, it will be integer comparison by length. And just print it. So there's very complicated logic you can put, like you can just say, hey, use the length to sort, right? So not sort strings, but you can see here sorted by length. So the least length on beginning and the last then. So that's a method reference. So you use specific things in Java. So those things that you can do today, but to be honest, you don't really ask these things at the interviews. That's why you don't look at them. Okay. So when you really need to use them, you learn them as you work. Okay. And you simply just Google them, you find them, right? Or just try it like I did right now, like, you know, and see how this goes, right? So it's something that it's a thousands of methods in Java. You don't need to remember all of them. And you're not asked this at the interview, to be honest. Okay. But this is how you normally sort in real work. Okay, you can see it has nothing to do with what you asked at the interview. So that's why, I mean, you don't look into that. You're mostly looking at this option because you just want to check your logic. Okay, behind this methods we just looked at, there's a way more advanced logic. Okay, very fast, very optimal. You know, we'll look at this as well. We'll talk about it, but you're not expected to write like that. Okay, so you just need to know simple logic. So that's why they're checking how your logic works really. Okay, make sense?
Yeah.
Just make sure it's good. All right. So again, we're going to move out from coding challenges. Your homework would be, I'm going to give you a couple of tasks. Like one would be, let's see. So one would be something about, so we have looked today at the reverse logic, right? Next time we'll look at the sentence as was suggested. And I'm going to give you probably find the max number in array or two max numbers in array. That will be an interesting task. Okay? That's sometimes asked. Two max numbers in array, first and second max. And I'm going to give you something around sorting, something like find duplicates, any duplicates. So that will be your homework. Let's make a break right now before I move into WebDriver. So let's have back at 8:42. Right? All right, so last time we have started looking at the WebDriver, and we'll continue today. So we have a few things to look for. So the main thing with WebDriver is that it's a library, it's a framework, right, that is in place. And you have two pieces to it. So piece number one is really the library itself that allows you to write Java code. And piece number two is a driver that basically accepts those requests that written in Java, and then it translates it into the browser, acting like user would. Okay, and that's really what unique about it. So the driver can understand. So it's basically the driver has an interface that understand all the languages, like Python, like Java, like JavaScript, Kotlin, Scala, whatever you like it. It's in place. Okay. So, you just want to make sure you have the right driver all the time, because otherwise it will not translate properly. Okay. So it used to be like one driver supported like 5 browsers. Now it supports only one version. Sorry, not 5 browsers, 5 versions or so. Now it only supports one version, and that's taking care of that one basically. So let me show you something here. So essentially, this is your browser, right? It's a Chrome, and here your IDE. It's a Java code, and here your driver. It's binary. So in our case, what happens is, right, the driver gets downloaded automatically through the special library. But normally, when you actually execute it, actually, it's also, why not, right? So it also works the same. So essentially, if you execute it on like 10 machines, each of those 10 might have a need update, right? And you want to ensure it happens automatically. So that's the way it is. So essentially, Java code, right, essentially doesn't work with Chrome directly. Cannot. So it works with the driver, and driver then emulates user behavior. Okay, and that's pretty much the idea is here. And the thing is, the driver is that it's also, say, if it's Python code, right, it also works very well through the same driver. Okay, why is that? Do you guys know, like, why would other languages also work the same way with the same driver? How come driver understands all these different languages?
It's machine language. They're all translated into machine language.
What kind of machine language?
Linux or
No, so it's
0101. This one.
No, it's not. Very simple, simpler. Okay, it's just API. Okay, just API calls. Essentially, those are get and post pattern, post get pattern essentially. So essentially, it's not a driver smart that understands all languages. It just all languages translate into API calls. Okay, and we don't need to go that deep into this, to be honest, but the reason I'm showing this because it's interesting. Two things I want to show you. Okay. Number one, there's a really nice site about WebDriver that I'll share you a link, and you just need to take a look. It's been updated recently. It used to be Selenium HQ. Right now, it's selenium.dev. It's a new refresh site. Very nice. So recommend to really go over just as a reference. It's very nice. It's not necessarily like there's some patterns here, like I can see right away that developers wrote them, okay? And developers make mistake with automation. What kind of mistake? They always go very heavy. It's like, like you use like a cannon to, shoot the small birds with it, essentially, like sparrows, right? So you don't need that heavy weapon for it, okay? To catch a bird. You don't want to even kill it, maybe, right? So basically, and that's a mistake that most developers do. So automation is kind of new, a relatively young discipline that needs special approach, because in automation, more important, clear code, easy to be modified, okay? It's not like development. You write it and then you just extend it, right? In automation, you write it and you need to rewrite it. If selectors change, if page updated, things like that. So it's a different patterns should be used. So just be careful with some patterns approach. I'll review maybe some of them, so you don't get, but otherwise it's very, very useful documentation, super useful. Second documentation is actually not documentation, it's specification, okay? That constantly get updated. You can see last version is from November 22nd. So this is exactly unique specification about WebDriver, okay? And this is driver specification. It's not Java, it's not Python, it's not, okay? It's really the language that it talks the driver to, okay? So this is maybe useful. I mean, in general, it's very complicated for beginners, okay? So it's not for beginners. However, by the way, see, it actually has a JSON request. So JSON request is made. So API means that it's actually really, see, you can see those are method calls. See post get pattern here in place. So you have post get. We also have actually delete, some deletes also. Yeah, you don't have any put here. And essentially all these different commands that we execute, right? Essentially all these API calls by the Java into the driver, okay? And it essentially just follows the whatever, like see, find element, make the full screen, switch to frame, new window, right? So like click on element, everything like that. So it's all like that. So why this document may be good? It's really what is the core of everything, okay? All the languages, all the exceptions, all the errors happens, they take from here, okay? Not from anywhere else. And you can see here, so what's really good about this is a reference to errors, what might happen. See like element click intercepted, not interactable. So you can see exactly what are the code, right? So it's a JSON format response. And it's a good reference for kind of errors that might happen, okay? That's number one. And number two, it's also good for like timeouts that in place. Like if I look at timeouts, this has some reference here on the top. Actually here. You actually can see what are default values for all these different timeouts and things like that. So actually, I'm not gonna go there right now on purpose because I want to later reference it with some questions before I show you. But yeah, this is a good document, and just in general specification of WebDriver. Okay, don't look at the code though; it has nothing to do with actual code you're gonna write. Okay, and this was actually a good reference to WebDriver, and this has reference to code in any language, like Java included. So this is the way it works. Actually, good. I see like this is. I just show you this. Like this is actually. I didn't see those pictures. They refreshed it. Very nice. And yeah, this is the way to install. So you see like there's some methods to navigate, things like that. You can see just switch to any language, and you can see that how it looks like in different languages. Okay. So that's my recommendation to go over. Very nice. It also has a reference to, same as like we have string reference, right? So this is also in Selenium Dev. It reference to Selenium, essentially. All you can do, you can look for like WebDriver, and you can see all the methods available at the top in here, okay? Also good for digging. Normally you just don't go over everything, like you just look up certain things, right? And then you see, like for example, element, right? Okay, what can you do? The actual web element is that we need. And you look at what's available, see like, is it displayed, is it selected, right? So it has reference what everything is doing. So you can look at references on method and just read about the signature and what exactly it does, and some maybe examples. Okay, in here. Actually, this is Ruby reference, so you can do Java. Let's see. Yeah, it actually must have some reference to other languages. So interesting. I just Googled it, it found this. But you see the same for Java as a reference as well. So let me just look it up real quick. So far, any questions, guys?
Slava, could you please share with all the links in the chat?
Yeah, I'll show you.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's a different ways to look up APIs and different versions. So you can, like one of the ways to look for, I think Selenium Dev must also have it. Let's see, Selenium Dev. Java doc. Yeah. So same location, just for Java stuff, right? And you can also look up, it's like all the classes available. You can search, and you can see what's in place here. So actually, yeah, see, somehow search is not perfectly working, but you can look at the left side, and it's all clickable, also sorted. Okay, and here's what you can do. You can see here, right? So for example, find element, recursive element. See that those are methods available at the top level from the driver. I see like the get current URL, explanation, find element by something, right? So what's the by? Okay, here you can see what's available in the by, right? You can look at web element, see what's available in web element, clicking, clearing, all this stuff, get text from it, right? Example, what you can do. And I think specification I just showed you already. It's exactly internal API code. So it's more like I recommend it for those of you who want to go into look in more advanced stuff. Okay. So if you're really learning at the beginning, it might be too much for you, but for those of you who want to look more, that's really great. All right, let's get back to the homework. So what was the homework? We had a quote.feature. So I recommend you right now, guys, so I recommend you look at that specification later. Let's focus on the quote feature. I'll make sure, I think if somebody shared links, but let's not spend right now on those links. And let's focus on actual homework review. So for those of you who've done it, you can help me here. So the homework was very simple. Essentially, we just want to fill out the required fields, right? And then verify those fields. And let's run and see first the result of it. So initially, you can see it, in my case, gotten until a submission. And in my case, also, I don't have all the required fields. So I'm not going to spend time right now on the required fields much because it's very obvious. You know already XPath, right? It's pretty self-explanatory. Every single input has a proper way to interact with it. So I just want to duplicate this and just change it, right? So username, email, password. Here I have this password, and I have confirm password. Same. Now the name is interesting. So do you want to, how do you want to interact with name? How do you want to enter the name? That's a question for you guys. Because some of you did that way, some of you did different way. What do you want to?
So first of all, you have to click because like user behavior.
Yeah. So I'm going to have a separate block. Right, okay. And I'm gonna just have get driver, find element. So I use by XPath as always, right? And this has just name XPath. If I observe it, I can double check that. So you can see that name equals name. Okay. You know, ID is also name. So I can use either name or I can use ID as well. Okay. And then I just want to click on it as I suggested. Instead of sending keys, I just click on it. Okay. So once I click on it, the pop-up appears, right? And then I want to enter the data in those fields. And those fields have also ID and name. So essentially, just piggyback on what I've done here, right? That this will be also ID, first name. This will be John, and last name. Enter as well, and then I click save. And for save, let's go with text. So I'm gonna see like this doesn't change. I use this, but this will be actual span with text save. So because text is a method, it's not attribute, so I don't use add. Add means attribute here. Okay. And the value will be saved. Just click on it. Okay. So let me run this and make sure it works up until this point. Since I have at the end timeout 2 seconds. You can see here, it shows up nicely. Now, I don't need to do it right now, but if I wanted to verify, I can extract the value somehow, right? From that field, this field. Can you guys help me? How would I read the value of that field? Let's say I put John Doe, and how do I get the value from this name?
Get text.
Dot get text.
Okay, let's start. All I want to print it right now. Okay, so just gonna print. Let me save it somewhere. String name text or name value. Okay, and I'll have I use this element. Okay, that's how I find it. And I just want to say get text. Okay, and then I just want to print it. Okay. And you know what I mean? I don't just breakpoint here, by the way. I don't need to print it. Breakpoint. And let me actually print it and breakpoint. That's fine. Okay. Run at debug mode and it'll stop here so I can really observe what's happening. Okay. So you can see clearly it's empty and nothing was printed either. Okay. Why is it empty? If I look at browser right now, it is not empty. You can see. This is the browser. Actually, it's here, sorry. This is the one. You can see it's not empty. This is the browser run.
You need to get attribute.
Exactly. So it's not text. So that's a common mistake. Text is this. Okay, this is text, this is text, this is text, not this. Okay, this is value. Okay. And value meaning attribute value. So and I'll show you how, like, look, this is browser stopped at this point, right? When I made it stop. So I can really use watches right now to experiment, okay? So what I want to do, I just want to take that piece, okay? And you can see this is actual element, okay? See, like, it's called remote web element. Remote means that on the browser, remote to me, okay? And you can see here, there's some unique identifier. You can see XPath for it. Okay. And also I can try to run commands. So say edit. Here's my expression, right? I say dot get text. Enter. Nothing. Okay. However, if I use another method, which is what? In this list.
Get attribute.
Exactly. An attribute name is what?
Value.
Yeah, value. Then I get what I need. So just don't confuse it. It's like common mistake. We look at it already in different scenario, but now we're looking at it in pure Java, so that's doesn't change things. Okay. So if you want to really get the data to get attribute, and that works for all input fields, including date of birth as well. Okay. So if I now run again, double check it. You can see now it is having value now and properly here, and it's also printed in here. Okay. So just make sure you don't miss it. So if you want to verify it, you can get that name value and do assertion. Okay. All right. So that's the way that this works. And the final step from this point is going to be clicking on this element, right? HS privacy policy agreement. So this will be what exactly? Input XPath having name, right? Input attribute name. This value. Just want to click on it. It's always like that, right? You start with the browser, find the element with certain locator, and then you decide what to do with it. Okay. In fact, in our case, we only use every single element once. That's why I don't use variables. However, for this guy, it will make sense to optimize it. So how do we optimize this guy? See, like we used this element here to click on it, and then we used same element here to get attribute of it. Can I optimize it?
Save this XPath somewhere.
Should I save XPath or should I save the whole element? That's what I think.
The whole element in web element data type.
Exactly. So I can look up. So what this returns really? You can see here, it returns web element. See, like on top it says what object I can call this method on, which is WebDriver. See, WebDriver blue. And you can see it returns web element. And you can see it accepts parameter by. Right? So that's what this shows up when I hold Control or Command on Mac and just mouse over. So it shows up a hint showing what kind of object type I'm calling this method against, and then also showing what it returns. So essentially, I want to save it somewhere, okay? And without calling method, just want to say, let's say I by mistake I said string, okay? Name element. Obviously, it will not allow me, so it will say, hey, fix it. So I can just be lazy and it will do it for me, okay? Otherwise, if I typed it in Java, you always import stuff if it's not part of standard Java. So to import, you hit Option Enter or Alt Enter from Windows. So it just adds this line for you. Okay. So my point is that I changed this. So now I saved the whole thing in web element. And now I can just use same element to click on it, and I can use same element to get attribute from it. So the bottom line is, in programming, if you use something twice, at least, or more, use the variable. If you just use it once and throw it away, don't use the variable. It becomes very heavy, right? So you don't need 2 lines for every single call. Definitely, you can optimize this kind of calls, right? For now, we're not doing it on purpose. We're keeping it plain. Later, we'll convert to page object patterns, so we will see how it optimizes. So let's make sure it works. We'll put breakpoint here. and just launch it. So variables are not necessarily strings or integers. Okay, variable can be any type of value. In this case, you can see variable is WebDriver, so web element. And even here, I can say name element. I don't know, say is displayed. It says yes, displayed. So I can actually call some methods in it. Is enabled. It is enabled. Is selected. It's not selected. So you can see, like, you can check some parameters from this element as you have the variable. Okay. All right. So I'm going to click on agree privacy policy, just in one step. Let's check the browser. You can see it did click successfully. So what else should I do here in this method? Fill out required fields. Anything else?
Submit the field.
Yeah, submit is different method. So I just showed you that it's a string, right? So this returns string, you can see. You call this get attribute on web element, and it returns a string. But because we don't use it more than once, what we can do, we can take the whole thing, just put inside of that method, right? You don't need variable to print. You can just call it inside of print line method. But this method is complete. So essentially, we just call all required fields, right? And then we are good to go. We are missing submit. So let's just create step definition for it. To remind you again, click on this, right? So bubble shows up, creates the definition inside of quote step depths. And in my case, I want to move it higher, so it's kind of easier to understand in here. And how they do submit.
Submit.
Can I ask with the question about the click? If you see we are not sure, maybe it was already clicked, and this step will just uncheck the checkbox. So maybe we have some assertions that the element is clicked here.
Yeah, it's a good thinking. So you're saying, okay, how do you know it's clicked? Because you want to select it. You're right. So what I'm doing here, I'm on purpose. So technically, I know, right? As an engineer, I know that after. So this I run when I first open the page. So it's empty, right? So I don't touch it. So it's a positive scenario, end-to-end scenario. I just want to make sure it's like a smoke test. Like if you like it, I enter whatever fields I want and I check it's all good. So that's all I'm doing. I don't do this extra verification on purpose. Of course, you can definitely do it. You can even create a separate method, right? Move it out and then just in method check the state. So we're going to do it once we move step up. So essentially what we're going to do exactly as you said, but within page object. Okay, that will make sense to do it inside of it. Okay. But your point, what you saying, right? How do you know it's clicked, right? How do you check? You want to check it, but how do you know it's checked? You definitely can do the following. You can say web element, right? And you can say privacy policy, right? You get the element, and then what you're saying, you know what? Before I click on it, I want to make sure it's not selected, right? So I say if privacy policy is selected, right? I don't click on it. Otherwise, I would click on it, right? So that's kind of, you can also reverse this instead of having empty block, right? You can just take this, move in here, and then you say only click if it's not selected. So you can really reverse it by putting exclamation mark before it's selected. Okay, this is basically reverse this value. to the opposite. It becomes, if it's not selected, then click. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can technically do this way. So you can even use 3 times. Found it. Yeah, actually twice. Sorry. Yeah, you can do it this way. This becomes like pretty loaded in this mirror, right? So you can do it pretty much everything. You can also clear, right? Before setting keys. How do you know it's no value here? It may be already valid. So you can do all kind of stuff. I mean, the question is, do you really want to do it? Or you know that once you start typing, you assume it's not in there, right? So you don't want to overcomplicate it also. But it's a good example. How do you want to double check it's not selected already? Okay. Otherwise, you might unselect it. For example, yeah, that's it. Questions on this? Okay. All right, submit the page. Use same block. Let's just try get driver, right? So here is access to browser. So always use this reference. So that's what you start with, right? You want to find element. Okay, start from here, get driver. Then you go find element. Then you go and click, right? But find element how? So by XPath, it's so far what we're using. Some value, and you get element here, and then you just click on it, right? So now you only need to put XPath for submit button. So let's look it up. Inspect it, shows up, right? You also can open CropPath. So it actually sometimes gives you nice XPath already, so you can either copy from here or you can click edit. So it brings it here. So you can modify it a bit, right? Hit enter, make sure it works well. It shows you result here, right? It's also looked up here. So that's kind of nice. Otherwise, you just copy this and just paste it here. So that's how you click on that submit. Let's test it. So always do step by step and just make sure it's all clean, green, and works well. Yeah, I think it should wait after submission. So I see actually the result before it closes. Just run one more time. Okay, so you can see that actually I saw some result, and we're coming into validation of this, right? So initially I said, hey, you can do manual assertion, which is this. But let me show you a couple of more, and that's what I really want to use as assertion. So technically this works, right? Let's say I expect it to be, I don't know, Richard Rowe, username result. Let's see what happens if it's not as expected. So you can see scenario has failed. Okay. You can also, by the way, see a report. So you can report HTML, you can open it in Chrome. You can see it failed, right? I can see what some kind of parameters here. You can search, or you can just click so it expands, right? And you can see it has failed with exception, incorrect username. So essentially it tells you that also the place it failed. See, like it says quote step devs, line 41. It even takes a screenshot. So you can see what's happening. So it only takes a screenshot if it fails. If you remember, it was in hooks. And you can see, okay, incorrect username John Doe. So technically it expects that it will be different, right? That's why it failed. So if you enter something else, right, that would be obviously a different result. Very nice report. So you clearly see what's happening right away, right? The report can be much nicer if you use some kind of continuous integration, or you use special reporting system like Allure, for example. Those are all like open source free tools that you can use for your case. Any questions on this? Okay. Now this is manual assertion, right? That you write down. It's a bit long, like 3 lines essentially, right? They're taken for this. So how they do built-in. So there's a few ways to do that. Okay. So so one way to do it, it's a really method, assert equals. That's actually part of JUnit. Okay. And essentially this method, you just pass a few objects and make sure it's equals. Okay, part of JUnit. So I actually imported JUnit assert. Okay, so technically, if I did not do static import, let me write it the full version of it. Okay, so just say do assert import class. I use JUnit. I say assert equals, and I just have 2 values, right? So first of all, using result, and second, I use this approach. Okay. Now let's say I put a wrong value here to validate. You can see it fails. And essentially, this is comparison failure that error breaks in JUnit. And you can see it tells you that what it expects and what it actually has. So that's pretty much does the same as this, just better error message. So this is just for example, right? But essentially, this is the way to go. There is also another method of JUnit. Just assert true. Okay, and you can see this method accepts Boolean. So you basically tell true, it means that it will not fail. False, it will fail. Okay, with error message. So essentially, you can also duplicate the same method, but put inside of this assertion. How do you do it? If you want to just check comparison. Can you guys help me?
Equals.
Yeah, exactly. So you say username result dot equals whatever value you want. Okay. So technically, this is cleaner, of course, right? You just clearly say I want to check assertion equals and provide 2 values. Okay. You can provide as many values as you want. By the way, all of them must be equals. Normally, of course, 2. In this case, you just always assert true, right? And whatever you put here, up to you. Whether it's equals, whether it's not doesn't equal, whether it's I don't know, like more than. So this technically is for more complicated. For equals, you should use this. For others, like you want to do like something else, like 5 more than 3. That's normally what you use assert true for. Okay. Of course, here you don't put scalar values. You put some variables, right? That you don't know if there's true or not. But you can put here like contains, right? I don't know, like username result contains something. That you cannot use equals. You use assert true. Okay, it's a good example, like when you want to do something on top. Questions on this?
You have there assert G library. Do we able to use from assert G or for the future?
Yeah, it's a good point. So that's what I actually was supposed to move on to. So I just wanted to start with those 2 methods because it's super popular. Okay, and you see them everywhere. So I want to make sure you don't miss that. Okay. To be honest, so to be honest with you, you can write this is so simple methods you can just write yourself. Okay. Like we just did an if else and then throw exception, right? Pretty much very simple. Okay. So technically you don't need to use those methods like store this, okay? If you want to use some kind of third-party assertion methods, you'd better use a really good library, okay, that does flexible assertions, more complicated assertions out of the box, okay? And that's library assert.j4, okay? So I just show you for reference, but let me actually change this. It's supposed to be. Let me just run it real quick so make sure it doesn't fail. But technically, those are too simple. Okay, so we're not going to use this. As was mentioned, we have POM.xml, and here we have assert.j library somewhere here below. Yeah. So this is assert for Java. That's what it says. Assert for J. Okay. Assert Java. So it has a site. Fluent assertions for Java. Okay. So pretty nice. So quick start. It tells you how to use it. So you basically, okay, attach this dependency in Maven. Okay. Let's see what we've done. See, like it has an older version. So you have 321.0. It has 311.1. But that's pretty much what you put here. That's how to use this library. Then it says, add assert.j method static import. Okay. Also recommends that. Okay. And then you can use this stuff in the code. Very similar to GUnit, but it doesn't say assert true or assert equals. It says assert that. So this method that we're going to use, it belongs not to JUnit, it belongs to assert.j. Okay. So you can see that you do static import on assertions. So technically what you can do, let's just do this for same example. Just use assertions. And this object really is the one that we're going to use. See, it says org assert.j core API. So just import that. Okay. And then you do assert that. So this actually end up doing import of this assertions object in assert.j package. Okay, same as assert in GUnit. Here we have assertions in assert.j. It's a different name because just not confuse assert, okay, from GUnit. But essentially you do assert that, and it works a bit different. How does it work? So you need to put inside of this library, what do you want to assert? Let's see, in our case, what we are sorting?
Username result.
Yeah, username result. And then you don't do anything inside, okay? So if you just leave it as that, it will always never fail, okay? It always be true. Because in this library, you need to really say after, what do you assert? So here you can see that you put one argument in that method, and then after you actually say how it should behave, and will fail, it will not, if it doesn't behave like that, okay? So you can see here it has like it's base, like even like check, look, it's a nice, it's base 64. So it's special encoding. It's a checks if string is base 64, okay? Or you can say the string is between some other strings, okay? Or you can check like string contains something, okay? Or you can say is equal to something. So in our case, we want to check is equal to John Doe. So that's how you write it, okay? So it's a bit longer, but why we are looking at this library, we're going to use that library because it's used very often, many projects. You want to learn the library that you're most likely going to use instead of very blunt, simple GUnit stuff. Okay, you can write your methods like that yourself and use them instead. But this is more complicated, so that's what more flexible also. We'll have some projects that will require more interesting use of this library. So you'll see more benefits. Any questions on this? Okay. Yeah, like I just want to show you another example. Let's say assertions. Insert that. Let's say you have some number 5, right? But again, it's a variable, right? And look, because it's a number, you can actually say, see, it's even number or greater than or is between or something. It has like is non-zero. So see, like it has a really lots of extra methods based on your object you enter here. Okay. So that's the benefit of this assertion for J library. That's why companies use this library a lot. Now, as per the instruction, it does recommend static import. Okay. So you don't need to type always assertions. So same as we did static import for getDriver, just going to copy this guy here. Technically, we don't need all these different methods. You just need assert that one method. Okay. So you can say star, it means everything. Or just specific method name, same as you can do star here or specific method. Okay, always try to be specific because it's more clear what you static import, so you don't need to confuse, because otherwise people start typing and will get confused. Okay, so many different things that may be important. So I always recommend specific method. It also considered to be faster to compile, so you save like half a second or so if you do it like 100 times. Maybe 1,000 times. Still half a second good, right? If it's like used by 20 people all the time, run all the time. Okay, so that's pretty much what you do. So that allow you to avoid using this assertions prefix. So you can just do assert that because you did static import of it. Questions?
Slava, if you want to verify for the date, like, and if you don't want to hard code that, then how can you do that?
I mean, date?
Yeah, because it's like every day it changes, right? So.
Oh, I see. So yeah, well, yeah, yeah. So you can do it. I'll show you next time maybe because I want to show you some next things that you can do. Okay, before we go into because we have 30 minutes left today. But yeah, I'll show this extra to you. What you can do is really is Java. You can have actually a way to get the date. Okay, so it's a new date object, and you can actually import it from util, right? And then you can check the value. Okay, and then you can essentially. You can, so there's a date object, it has everything, including time. And you can really extract everything from it. And then that will be your date, right? And then you format it properly. That's, you can see, like, this is what it tells me. Okay. So you can extract date from it and format it in a certain way. There's a datetime formatter. And then you can really format it in the same way that it's formatted here on the side. And you can compare it here if you want. I think actually good to play with homework to use date method and date library. Okay. But for now, yeah. This is basically, we don't verify that piece, but yeah, it's good thinking. So you can really play with that. That's a good exercise. Okay.
And also,
yeah.
And also when you write the code and if for any data type or class, if you want to dig more into that, like how do you do that? I mean, just you select that one, say for example, date or a web element or dimensions and click on, how do you go inside that?
Can you say it again? What's the question again? I'm not sure.
Yeah, say for example, web element, something is equal to this. So if you want to go into the web element, you did it many times that way. So how do you go into that?
Inside a method? like this one.
No, not here, but yeah, like that.
Yeah, first of all, actually, you need to download sources. It'll give you way better help. So there's a few ways to do it. Yeah, how do you go there? It's easy to get lost. Just be careful. Okay, just want to tell you. Okay, let's say I want to go inside of find element. Really, what I'm looking for here? Like
No, not for the find element, but web element. Whatever is the data type.
Okay. Okay, so you just hold command or hold alt if it's Windows, and then on top of it, just mouse over.
Okay, so hold command and mouse over.
Yeah, if you, are you on Mac or Windows?
Mac.
Yeah, so just hold command, mouse over.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Yeah, sorry, I didn't understand initially.
No worries.
But yeah, it's the same. If you click on it, then you get even into it. And I recommend download sources. That will make sense, but it's not your code, right? It's like something if you want to explore, what really do, right? You know, like for example, like this may be useful for just for reference, right? Since I mentioned that, it may be useful if you look, like for example, you have this one, right? Like how does it work really? You get inside, right? Then you can see it just checks. If it's object, right, it just checks the references, really. However, the truth is that if it's integer, actually it's supposed to be here. Like what happens if you do equals an integer? You see it's integer class, right? So you can see in integer, it checks that the anything you pass to it is actually first of all integer type. Okay, and then it converts it to integer and verifies with simple double equals, as we already know. What tells me that if, let's for example, try to compare 5 and 5.0, it will be false because 5.0 as an object here would not be integer. So it's kind of like, you know, extra information you get by just looking into things, which is a bit more advanced. So as a beginner, you normally don't go that, but there's a use case. Just want to show you that you might be using in the future. Okay, so let's finish with assertions. What I'd like to do, I'd like to essentially verify not just a simple one field, but I want to quickly fill this out. Submit. So I want to really look at the box. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, I want to look at the box XPath. They actually did already, so I don't want to spend too much time. So we did it in Cucumber, predefined steps. So here, what I would like to do, I would like to say string result, and I want to say get driver, find element, by XPath. Here's my XPath, right? So this would be quote page result. So it will be div, right? / div id equals quote page result. So always, I mean, I get text. Always verify XPath in Corpat. Hit enter, see found it. This is the box. Let's see highlights it. So what I can do, I can just get the box and just make sure it contains all the values I want. Okay, just keep it simple. Okay, so that's result text. Result text. And what I can do, I can just do result text. So actually assert tab, right? Assert tab, result text contains. Okay, contains John Doe, right? Contains the name, contains email that I entered before. Okay, I want to check it doesn't contain the password. So I can say does not contain the password. I don't want the password to show up somewhere. Okay. What else? That's it. So probably agreed to privacy policy is another one. That's good to check. Okay, so technically I don't need to check every single field like that. Okay, I can just check the box and all elements in it. However, for cases like that, the result is true, right? For example, what if I checked allow to contact? Now I have two values at the same, so I don't want to confuse one versus another, right? So in this case, I want a specific XPath for that value, right? So this will be B with that name, right? So B with the name of this, right? This will be agreed. And this I check as true because it's text, okay? Check as text. Make sense? I also might want to, so okay, check it doesn't contain password, but I might want to also check specifically this field, right? Which has, it has B name password. I want to make sure it has this entered value, right? So just masked value basically. So I'm going to just have this will be password. Sorry, I think it's a password. And I just want to make sure it has this entered here, okay? So that's example of verification that I can do. I can check, of course, every single field and don't use the box at all. Or I can do just like that in specific fields. I also might want to print, you know, for example, let's print whatever result text is, right? So I can actually maybe, instead of printing it, you probably add the logs. I'll show you later how to use logs. For now, I just print in console. So like after run, right, it gives me extra information. So that's really part of result. So I can visually also see, okay, it looks good. Okay. Make sense? Any questions on assertion, verification?
Can we iterate inside the contains, whereas contains .do, comma, and so on?
No, I cannot here. Actually, there may be methods that just have multiple values, like, you know, contains. Like you can maybe there is some multiple. Yeah, I think it maybe we can just put this way. Like this one, right? Let's test it. So by looking at it, you might find out, right, that has yeah, like all of them. Like for example, if I by mistake, it's another mistake, but it's real bug. Maybe this is what's supposed to be male, right? So in that case, it failed, as you can see, because one of the values did not contain. So, and they'll tell you, see, expecting actual, blah, 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 to contain this, right? And couldn't find this. So it actually tells you specifically what the problem is. Cool. So, yeah, it's like that's all about assert J. See, it gives you much better power, right? I mean, like for list of values, all of them contained. Yeah, you can definitely make it simpler like that. A good question. All right. Yeah, so that's this. Obviously, you can also avoid using library, but it becomes very long, lengthy one, right? So, like, you can put this in here, but it becomes hard to sustain like this one, right? So I would prefer always 2 lines if it's a really long one. Or you can optimize this, of course, which we're going to do, but we'll do it later. Okay, so that's your assertion. And again, you don't use soft assertion, meaning that, okay, you know, that's not correct value, but let's continue. No, if it's assertion, it means you, at least this broken, so you break the whole thing. You don't verify everything else. because it's really, you don't have time, to be honest. And if you, especially if it's different steps after failed step, you're just losing time and resources. Okay, scenario failed, so you don't want to go forward. And you don't want a situation when scenario is green, right? But it's something wrong with it, and you want to read, and you just don't really have time when it's 1,000 scenarios. That's the reality. So you always use assertion, meaning you fail if something is wrong, and then you fix this, and then you run the whole thing to make sure everything is good. That proved to be the most efficient and reliable way. Okay, so let's see. So this is looking good, right? Now I just run again, make sure it's good. We can proceed from there. And I'll switch to the homework. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much what we have here. There is more stuff that you can definitely do. Okay. However, the truth is that let's actually look at real projects and play with it. We're gonna get back to code, okay? But for now, I wanna you play with some real project. So let me actually share screen back, and I'll show you what I would like. So let's work with. I have it maybe opened here already. Yeah, let's say play with this side a bit. So what I would like to do, and I have a scenario saved, so I'm going to create a new feature. Gonna have this base feature. Then I'm gonna have first one right in the scenario. Okay. So here's my scenario here, right? So I'm gonna close everything else. The only thing I think it's supposed to be looking a little bit different. We already have this step, okay? But here's what we have. I want to go to zip and just find the zip fork and confirm it, okay? Find zip, validate zip projects. So here's a simple scenario. I go to USPS page, I go to look up zip page by address, fill out the address, and then I validate that zip code is correct, okay? So let's run it, see it fails, always good. I think I did copy this and probably copied some, so like this is actually interesting. Sometimes this happens, right? When you copy paste something, right? See, like it says element class, leaf, PCI, Gherkin, different providers, blah, blah. So it's really weird if it happens. Normally, see, I deleted some like non-breaking spaces, but looks like there's something else that really showed up, okay? So the way to fix this is basically cut the whole thing. Maybe you just put it in some simple text editor, get back and just try it again. Okay. Let's see this way. So let me try again. Yeah, some kind of weird behavior when it right-clicking complain, actually scenario, but feature was okay. Any suggestions why what can be?
Because in the step def, we need to add this in the step def, we need to add for the USPS where we put the cases.
Yeah, so I think it's probably, I would, if I put it my bet, I would I don't know, like I would probably think that it's let me actually do some experiment here, okay? I'm gonna just get rid of this and let me run this, okay? Okay, let me just do this way. So if you see some kind of weird issue, step back and do step by step. So given I go to, I don't know, like Google page, just see if this complains, because when I run the scenario, okay. It does, right? So, okay, that's good. So at least I don't need to have the whole thing. It breaks right away, right? What I would like to do now, I'll get back here. And okay, let's talk about this guy. Is gonna also break? No, this, okay. So something wrong with this guy.
Maybe because you just created and you didn't
I
change it.
didn't glue it to the step depths.
Not necessarily. Yeah, that's okay. Let's just do let's just clear the whole thing. And let's run again. This guy. See, now it looks okay. Sometimes I like get some weird errors. Let me put this back and just run again. Okay, let me do right clicking. Okay, probably had something in the config, but I deleted it now. So you can see like universal fix is just clear config. So probably some references to something it had in config, which is it's not because new file. It's just I can say it definitely happened because I copy pasted it, and it has certain characters in it, and it kind of weirdly can create config based on that. So that's probably the case. Okay, always like step back if happens like that and clear it and just resolve it. Okay, so issues when you develop are common, normal, happens with everyone. It's just the way how you perceive them. So you say, okay, let's just figure out. Normally you figure out fast, right? You never have no issues. You always have something. All right, so okay, so this now works, but it fails at first step because of what you can see here. Step failed because it says unsupported page. It clearly tells me what's wrong because I need to get back here, right? And then I need support extra value, the new keys, which will be USPS. I can also decide, you know what, I want to make sure it's whether it's uppercase or lowercase, it's still going to work. So because I only have lowercase here, I can just convert this to lowercase. Okay. In the switch, then whatever I enter here, right, it will always convert to lowercase and check that it's correct. So that's what a bit small trick. If you don't care, is it capitalized, is it all caps, or is it all lowercase and things like that? Okay. So I can technically say now like this. Okay. But in general, always good to follow same approach, right? So you don't do like this, right? Put always lowercase values so you don't get confused. But you can really have a fix for that scenarios, okay? If that's the case. All right. Closing everything except this. So now it's supposed to open that, right? Actually, not yet. I'm gonna just copy this URL. So this is supposed to open, okay? And just do quick test. Okay, see it opens correctly. Okay, now I'm going to show you what you're supposed to do. Okay, and that will be your homework. I'll copy the scenario so you'll have it. So you're supposed to, first of all, go to look up the page by address. Okay, so you can do it two ways. Either you can go to Quick Tools, and you can see here, look up a zip code. Click here, right? So you kind of mouse over, right, which you don't know yet. However, you can click on this. And this all opens still, okay? Then you don't need mouse over. I'll show you mouse over next class and other actions like that. For now, just click. And then you click on this guy. And then, so the last two clicks, the third click would be on this guy, find by address. Also, you can click here, also, same, okay? It's your call, whatever you decide. So you need to get this page first, okay? Other approach may be you click or mouse over and send. You see like send here. Again, I'm going to skip mouse over scenarios because we have not learned it. I'm going to only focus on clicking, okay? So you either click here, and then here, or you can click here, then you click here, and then you click here. So 3 clicks, essentially, how do you get to this form? Those 3 clicks must be inside of this one step, okay? So now once you get there, you're supposed to fill out this street, and you fill out this city. Then you select California in this case. Okay. And that's it. So 3 things. You can, by the way, also later use your own address because it's a universal scenario. It doesn't need to be this, right? So you can change this purely in Cucumber. Just create new scenario. Now here you fill out and you want to click find. And your job would be to validate that this zip exists in result. Okay. So this 94022 is in result list. Okay, how do you do it? You can just check the whole box and just make sure it contains that zip. Or you can, if it's multiple elements, you can just go over for loop all those elements. And you can make sure they have this proper, every single row has a proper zip. Now, we have not looked yet into that for loop, so I'll show you next class. If you want to do it yourself as a bonus, you can, I'll give you some quick hint. So you have get driver, right? Find element, and you have some XPath here. Right? That's how you normally, obviously you need to say by XPath. That's how you get element, one single element. Okay. Now, if this XPath finds more than one element, you get the top one, the first one. Let's say you have 10 elements found, but you have singular get element, find element, you get top one. And that's why I always say, if you're looking for one, you always make sure XPath finds one, otherwise you'll be confusing unpredictable result, which we already proved at core project. However, if you know it will be multiple, right? And you want to find multiple, in that case, very similar method called just plural, find elements plural. And you can see it returns a list. See here, list. You can also mouse over here, you can see also list returned. So list of web elements. Okay. Now this is a list, okay, and you can go over this list using for loop. So for web element, out of element, right? And then here you can do really whatever you want. Okay? Every single element you can click on every single one, or you can get text from every single one, right? And then check that assertion is correct. If you get a list. So if this looks too complicated for you, don't go the way. It's a bonus, okay? So I don't expect you to do this way. Just want to show you reference so you can just reference find elements plural. What you can do if you don't want to use list, you can just find the whole box of results that has the whole thing. See, this is the one. This is the element you need. And just make sure that element contains your zip. That's your verification. Okay. Zip. So it has a nice ID. So just check it out. Questions? All right. So that's pretty much your homework, guys. I'm going to post the slides, and actually I already prepared it, so I'll just do it right now. Okay. And once recording is processed, it will be available in the end recording list out there. So if there is no questions, then let's adjourn for today. As usual, reminder, you'll have a session on Wednesday. So with Vlad, so he'll go over his thoughts and his things. I do recommend just see and watch, even if it's too complicated, still learn a little bit more. And we'll keep our simple exercise on our Monday, Thursday, and take it from there. So thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
Good night.
Bye.
Have a good night.